Charles Stewart Parnell was an Irish nationalist politician and one of the most powerful figures in the British House of Commons in the 1880s. Born into a wealthy and powerful Anglo-Irish Protestant landowning family, he entered the House of Commons in 1875. He was a land reform agitator, and became leader of the Home Rule League in 1880, insisting on operating independently of the Liberals, and winning great influence by his balancing of constitutional, radical, and economic issues, and by his skillful use of parliamentary procedure. He was imprisoned in Kilmainham Gaol in 1882, but, a very capable negotiator, was released when he renounced violent extra-parliamentary action. The same year he reformed the Home Rule League as the Irish Parliamentary Party, which he controlled minutely as Britain's first disciplined democratic party. The hung Parliament of 1885 saw him hold the balance of power between William Gladstone's Liberals and Lord Salisbury's Conservatives. His power was one factor in Gladstone's adoption of Home Rule as the central tenet of the Liberal Party. His reputation peaked in 1889–90 when letters published in the Times linking him to the Phoenix Park murders of 1882 were shown to have been forged by Richard Pigott. However, the Irish Parliamentary Party split in 1890 after the revelation of Parnell's long adulterous love affair, causing many English Liberals to refuse to work with him, and strong opposition from Catholic bishops. He headed a small minority faction until his death in 1891. Gladstone described him as, "I do not say the ablest man, I say the most remarkable and the most interesting." He was an intellectual phenomenon. Liberal leader H. Asquith called him as one of the 3 or 4 greatest men of the 19th century, while Lord Haldane described him as the strongest man the House of Commons had seen in 150 years. Historian A. J. P. Taylor says, more than any other man he gave Ireland the sense of being an independent nation. Family background and early life. Charles Stewart Parnell was born in County Wicklow, the 3rd son and 7th child of John Henry Parnell, a wealthy Anglo-Irish landowner, and his American wife Delia Tudor Stewart of Bordentown, New Jersey, daughter of the American naval hero Admiral Charles Stewart. There were 11 children in all, 5 boys and 6 girls. Admiral Stewart's mother, Parnell's great-grandmother, belonged to the Tudor family. Sir Parnell had a distant relationship with the British royal family. John Henry Parnell himself was a cousin of one of Ireland's leading aristocrats, Viscount Powerscourt, and also the grandson of a Chancellor of the Exchequer in Grattan's Parliament, Sir John Parnell, who lost office in 1799 when he opposed the Act of Union. The Parnells of Avondale were descended from a Protestant English merchant family, which came to prominence in Congleton, Cheshire, early in the 17th century, whereas Baron Congleton 2 generations held the office of Mayor of Congleton before moving to Ireland. The family produced a number of notable figures, including Thomas Parnell, the Irish poet, and Henry Parnell, 1st Baron Congleton, the Irish politician. Parnell's grandfather William Parnell, who inherited the Avondale estate in 1795, was a Liberal Irish MP for Wicklow from 1817 to 1820. Thus, from birth, Charles Stewart Parnell possessed an extraordinary number of links to many elements of society. He was linked to the old Irish parliamentary tradition via his great-grandfather and grandfather, to the American War of Independence via his grandfather, to the War of 1812. Parnell belonged to the Church of Ireland, disestablished in 1871, though in later years he began to drop away from formal church attendance, and he was connected with the aristocracy through the past courts. Yet it was as a leader of Irish nationalism that Parnell established his fame. Parnell's parents separated when he was 6, and as a boy he was sent to different schools in England, where he spent an unhappy youth. His father died in 1859 and he inherited the Avondale estate, while his older brother John inherited another estate in Armagh. The young Parnell studied at Magdalen College, Cambridge, but, due to the troubled financial circumstances of the estate he inherited, he was absent a great deal and never completed his degree. In 1871, he joined his elder brother John Howard Parnell, who farmed in Alabama, on an extended tour of the United States. Their travels took them mostly through the South, and apparently the brothers neither spent much time in centers of Irish immigration nor sought out Irish Americans. In 1874, he became High Sheriff of Wicklow, his home county, in which he was also an officer in the Wicklow militia. He was noted as an improving landowner who played an important part in opening the South Wicklow area to industrialization. His attention was drawn to the theme dominating the Irish political scene of the mid-1870s. Isaac Butt's Home Rule League formed in 1873 to campaign for a moderate degree of self-government. It was in support of this movement that Parnell first tried to stand for election in Wicklow, but as High Sheriff was disqualified. He failed again in 1874 as Home Rule candidate in a County Dublin by-election. Historian Kevin Flynn reports, when Gladstone came to know him in later years, he was astonished to find that Parnell was ignorant even of the basic facts of Irish history. The romantic vision that characterized young Ireland and the Fenians escaped him completely. He knew little of figures like Sarsfield, Tone or Emmet, and even appeared unsure of who won the Battle of the Boyne. Flynn argues that the primary reason Parnell joined the Irish cause was his implacable hostility towards England, which probably was founded on grievances from his school days, and his mother's hostility toward England. Member of Parliament, Parnell was first elected to the House of Commons as a Home Rule League Member of Parliament for County Meath on the 21st of April 1875 in a by-election, backed by Fenian Patrick Egan. He replaced the deceased League MP, veteran Young Irelander John Martin. He subsequently sat for the constituency of Youghal, Cork from 1880 until 1891. During his first year, Parnell remained a reserved observer of parliamentary proceedings. He first came to attention in the public eye when in 1876 he claimed in the Commons that he did not believe that any murder had been committed by Fenians in Manchester. This drew the interest of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, a physical force Irish organisation that had staged a rebellion in 1867. Parnell made it his business to cultivate Fenian sentiments both in Britain and Ireland, and became associated with the more radical wing of the Home Rule League, which included Joseph Biggar, John O'Connor Power, Edmund Y. Gray, and Frank Hugh O'Donnell. He engaged with them and played a leading role in a policy of obstructionism to force the House to pay more attention to Irish issues, which had previously been ignored. Obstruction involved giving lengthy speeches which were largely irrelevant to the topic at hand. This behavior was opposed by the less aggressive chairman of the Home Rule League, Isaac Butt. Parnell visited America that year accompanied by O'Connor Power. The question of his closeness to the IRB, and whether indeed he ever joined the organization, has been a matter of academic debate for a century. The evidence suggests that later, following the signing of the Kilmainham Treaty, Parnell did take the IRB oath, possibly for tactical reasons. What is known as that IRB involvement in the League's sister organization, the Home Rule Confederation of Great Britain, led to the moderate Butt's ousting from its presidency and the election of Parnell in his place on the 28th of August 1877. Parnell was a restrained, Speaker in the House, but his organizational, analytical and tactical skills earned wide praise, enabling him to take on the British organization's presidency, but died in 1879 and was replaced as chairman of the Home Rule League by the Whig-oriented William Shaw. Shaw's victory was temporary, however. New departure. From August 1877, Parnell held a number of private meetings with prominent Fenian leaders. He visited Paris, where he met John O'Leary and J. O'Kelly, both of whom were impressed by him and reported positively to the most capable and militant leader of the American Republican Clan Gael organization, John Devoy. In December, at a reception for Michael David on his release from prison, he met William Carroll, who assured him of Clan Gael's support in the struggle for Irish self-government. This led to a meeting in March 1878 between influential constitutionalists Parnell and Frank Hugh O'Donnell, and leading Fenians O'Kelly, O'Leary and Carroll. This was followed by a telegram from John Devoy in October 1878 which offered Parnell a new departure deal of separating militancy from the constitutional movement as a path to all-Ireland self-government, under certain conditions, abandonment of a federal solution in favour of separatist self-government, vigorous agitation in the land question on the basis of peasant proprietorship, exclusion of all sectarian issues, collective voting by party members and energetic resistance to coercive legislation. Parnell preferred to keep all options open without clearly committing himself when he spoke in 1879 before Irish tenant defence associations at Ballinasloe and Tralee. It was not until David persuaded him to address a second meeting at Westport, County Mayo in June that he began to grasp the potential of the land reform movement. At a national level, several approaches were made which eventually produced the New Departure of June 1879, endorsing the foregone informal agreement which asserted an understanding binding them to mutual support and a shared political agenda. In addition, the New Departure asserted the Fenian movement and its armed strategies. Working together with David, he now took on the role of leader of the New Departure, holding platform meeting after platform meeting around the country. Throughout the autumn of 1879, he repeated the message to tenants after the long depression had left them without income for rent. You must show the landlord that you intend to keep a firm grip on your homesteads and lands. You must not allow yourselves be dispossessed as you were dispossessed in 1847. Land League leader. Parnell was elected president of David's newly founded Irish National Land League in Dublin on the 21st of October 1879, signing a militant Land League address campaigning for land reform. In so doing, he linked the mass movement to the parliamentary agitation, with profound consequences for both of them. Andrew Kettle, his right-hand man, became honorary secretary. In a bout of activity, he left for America in December 1879 with John Dillon to raise funds for famine relief and secure support for Home Rule. Timothy Healy followed to cope with the press, and they collected £70,000 for distress in Ireland. During Parnell's highly successful tour, he had an audience with American President Rutherford B. Hayes. On the 2nd of February 1880, he addressed the House of Representatives on the state of Ireland and spoke in 62 cities, including in Canada, where he was so well received in Toronto that Healy dubbed him the uncrowned King of Ireland. He strove to retain Fenian support, but insisted when asked by a reporter that he personally could not join a secret society. Central to his whole approach to politics was ambiguity, in that he allowed his hearers to remain uncertain. During his tour, he seemed to be saying that there were virtually no limits. To abolish landlordism, he asserted, would be to undermine English misgovernment, and he is alleged to have added, "When we have undermined English misgovernment, we have paved the way for Ireland to take her place amongst the nations of the earth. And let us not forget that that is the ultimate goal at which all we Irishmen aim. None of us, whether we be in America or in Ireland, will be satisfied until we have destroyed the last link which keeps Ireland bound to England. His activities came to an abrupt end when the 1880 United Kingdom general election was announced for April, and he returned to fight it. The Conservatives were defeated by the Liberal Party. William Gladstone was again Prime Minister. 63 Home Rulers were elected, including 27 Parnell supporters, Parnell being returned for 3 seats: Cork City, Mayo and Meath. He chose to sit for the Cork seat. His triumph facilitated his nomination in May in place of Shaw as leader of the new Home Rule League party. Faced with the country on the brink of a land war, although the League discouraged violence, agrarian outrages grew from 863 incidents in 1879 to 2,590 in 1880, after evictions increased from 1,238 to 2,110 in the same period. Parnell saw the need to replace violent agitation with country-wide mass meetings and the application of David's boycott, also as a means of achieving his objective of self-government. Gladstone was alarmed at the power of the Land League at the end of 1880. He attempted to defuse the land question with dual ownership in the Second Land Act of 1881, establishing a land commission that reduced rents and enabled some tenants to buy the farms. These halted arbitrary evictions, but not where rent was unpaid. Historian R.F. Foster argues that in the countryside the Land League reinforced the politicization of rural Catholic nationalist Ireland, partly by defining that identity against urbanization, landlordism, Englishness and implicitly Protestantism. Kilmainham Crossroads. Parnell's own newspaper, The United Ireland, attacked the Land Act, and he was arrested on 13 October 1881 together with his party lieutenants, William O'Brien, John Dillon, Michael Davitt and Willie Redmond, who had also conducted a bitter verbal offensive. They were imprisoned under a proclaimed coercion act in Kilmainham Gaol for sabotaging the Land Act, from where the No Rent Manifesto, which Parnell and the others signed, was issued, calling for a national tenant-farmer rent strike. The Land League was suppressed immediately. Whilst in jail, Parnell moved in April 1882 to make a deal with the government, negotiated through Captain William O'Shea MP, that provided the government settled the rent arrears question, allowing 100,000 tenants to appeal for fair rent before the land courts, then withdrawing the manifesto and undertaking to move against agrarian crime, after he realized militancy would never win Home Rule. Parnell also promised to use his good offices to quell the violence and to cooperate cordially for the future with the Liberal Party in forwarding liberal principles and measures of general reform. His release on the 2nd of May following the so-called Kilmainham Treaty marked a critical turning point in the development of Parnell's leadership, when he returned to the parameters of parliamentary and constitutional politics, and resulted in the loss of support of Devoy's American Irish. However, his political diplomacy preserved the national Home Rule movement after the Phoenix Park murders of the Chief Secretary Lord Cavendish, and his Undersecretary, T.H. Burke, on the 6th of May. Parnell was shocked to the extent that he offered Gladstone to resign his seat as MP. The militant Invincibles responsible fled to America, which allowed him to break links with radical Land Leaguers. In the end, it resulted in a Parnell-Gladstone alliance working closely together. Davitt and other prominent members left the IRB, and many rank-and-file Fenians drifted into the Home Rule movement. For the next 20 years, the IRB ceased to be an important force in Irish politics, leaving Parnell and his party the leaders of the nationalist movement in Ireland. Party restructured, Parnell now sought to use his experience and huge support to advance his pursuit of Home Rule and resurrected the suppressed Land League on 17 October 1882 as the Irish National League. It combined moderate agrarianism, a Home Rule programme with electoral functions, was hierarchical and autocratic in structure, with Parnell wielding immense authority and direct parliamentary control. Parliamentary constitutionalism was the future path. The informal alliance between the new, tightly disciplined INL and the Catholic Church was one of the main factors for the revitalization of the national Home Rule course after 1882. Parnell saw that the explicit endorsement of Catholicism was of vital importance to the success of this venture and worked in close cooperation with the Catholic hierarchy in consolidating its hold over the Irish electorate. The leaders of the Catholic Church largely recognized the Parnellite Party as guardians of church interests, despite uneasiness with a powerful lay leadership. At the end of 1885, the highly centralized organization had 1,200 branches spread around the country, though there were fewer in Ulster than in the other provinces. Parnell left the day-to-day running of the INL in the hands of his lieutenants Timothy Harrington as secretary, William O'Brien, editor of its newspaper United Ireland, and Timothy Healy. Its continued agrarian agitation led to the passing of several Irish Land Acts that over 3 decades changed the face of Irish land ownership, replacing large Anglo-Irish estates with tenant ownership. Parnell next turned to the Home Rule League Party, of which he was to remain the re-elected leader for over a decade, spending most of his time at Westminster, with Henry Campbell as his personal secretary. He fundamentally changed the party, replicated the INL structure within it and created a well-organized grassroots structure, introduced membership to replace ad hoc, informal groupings in which MPs with little commitment to the party voted differently on issues, often against their own party, or they simply did not attend the House of Commons at all. In 1882, he changed his party's name to the Irish Parliamentary Party. A central aspect of Parnell's reforms was a new selection procedure to ensure the professional selection of party candidates committed to taking the seats. In 1884, he imposed a firm party pledge, which obliged party MPs to vote as a bloc in Parliament on all occasions. The creation of a strict party whip and formal party structure was unique in party politics at the time. The Irish Parliamentary Party is generally seen as the first modern British political party, its efficient structure and control contrasting with the loose rules and flexible informality found in the main British parties, which came to model themselves on the Parnellite model. The Representation of the People Act 1884 enlarged the franchise, and the IPP increased its number of MPs from 63 to 85 in the 1885 election. The changes affected the nature of candidates chosen. Under Butt, the party's MPs were a mixture of Catholic and Protestant, landlord and others, Whig, Liberal and Tory, often leading to disagreements in policy that meant that MPs split in votes. Under Parnell, the number of Protestant and landlord MPs dwindled, as did the number of Tories seeking election. The Parliamentary Party became much more Catholic and middle class, with a large number of journalists and lawyers elected and the disappearance of Protestant ascendancy landowners and Tories from it. Towards Home Rule, Parnell's party emerged swiftly as a tightly disciplined and, on the whole, energetic body of parliamentarians. By 1885, he was leading a party well poised for the next general election. His statements on Home Rule designed to secure the widest possible support Speaking in Cork on the 21st of January 1885, he stated, "We cannot ask the British Constitution for more than the restitution of Grattan's Parliament, but no man has the right to fix the boundary of a nation. No man has the right to say to his country, 'Thus far shalt thou go and no further,' and we have never attempted to fix the ne plus ultra to the progressive Ireland's nationhood, and we never shall." Both British parties toyed with various suggestions for greater self-government for Ireland. In March 1885, the cabinet rejected the proposal of Radical Minister Joseph Chamberlain of Democratic county councils, which in turn would elect a central board for Ireland. Gladstone, on the other hand, saying he was prepared to go rather further than the idea of a central board. After Gladstone's government fell in June 1885, Parnell urged the Irish voters in Britain to vote against the Liberals. The November general elections brought about a hung parliament in which the Liberals, with 335 seats, won 86 more than the Conservatives, with a Parnellite bloc of 86 Irish Home Rule MPs holding the balance of power in the Commons. Parnell's task was now to win acceptance of the principle of a Dublin Parliament. Parnell at first supported a Conservative government. They were still the smaller party after the elections, but after renewed agrarian distress arose when agricultural prices fell and unrest developed during 1885. Lord Salisbury's Conservative government announced coercion measures in January 1886. Parnell switched his support to the Liberals. The prospects shocked Unionists. The Orange Order, revived in the 1880s to oppose the Land League, now openly opposed Home Rule. On the 20th of January, the Irish Unionist Party was established in Dublin. By 28th of January, Salisbury's government had resigned. The Liberals regained power on the 1st of February. Their leader Gladstone, influenced by the status of Norway, which at the time was self-governing but under the Swedish crown, moving towards Home Rule, which Gladstone's son Herbert revealed publicly under what became known as the flying of the hardened kite. The third Gladstone administration paved the way towards the generous response to Irish demands that the new Prime Minister had promised, but was unable to obtain the support of several key players in his own party. Lord Hartington refused to serve at all, while Joseph Chamberlain briefly held office, then resigned when he saw the terms of the proposed bill. On the 8th of April 1886, Gladstone introduced the first Irish Home Rule Bill, his object to establish an Irish legislature. Although large imperial issues were to be reserved to the Westminster Parliament, the Conservatives now emerged as enthusiastic Unionists. Lord Randolph Churchill declared, "The orange card is the one to play." In the course of a long and fierce debate, Gladstone made a remarkable Home Rule speech, beseeching Parliament to pass the bill. However, the split between pro- and anti-Home Rulers within the Liberal Party caused the defeat of the bill on its second reading in June by 341 to 311 votes. Parliament was dissolved and elections called, with Irish Home Rule the central issue. Gladstone hoped to repeat his triumph of 1868, when he fought and won a general election to obtain a mandate for Irish disestablishment. But the result of the July 1886 general election was Liberal defeat. The Conservatives and the Liberal Unionist Party returned with a majority of 118 over the combined Gladstonian Liberals and Parnell's 85 Irish Party seats. Salisbury formed his second government, a minority Conservative government with Liberal Unionist support. The Liberal split made the Unionists the dominant force in British politics until 1906, with strong support in Lancashire, Liverpool and Manchester, Birmingham and the House of Lords, where many Whigs sat.